I'm Gene O'Hara, the Director of the Monfort Executive Professor Program here at the College of Business, and I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today. But before I do that, I wanted to just, for those of you who may not know what the Monfort Executive Professor Program is, it was developed over 20 years ago with the support of Kenneth and Myra Monfort with the purpose of bringing in professional business practitioners into the classroom and to integrate their day-to-day experience in running businesses of various types with the more theoretical basis of the classroom education that we offer on a day-to-day basis. So to do that, we bring in the guest lectures that may be in your classes periodically, people from industry that are out there trying to be successful on a daily basis and so forth. But we also bring in speakers like we have today, the Monfort Executive Speaker Series. We have the Monfort Executive Professors that come in from industry and they teach the whole course. But this year we started a new position. It's called the Monfort Senior Executive in Residence Professorship. And that will be a 1 to 2 year appointment. And to fill that position, we decided that we wanted to bring somebody in from international marketing and management. And we advertised that position in the Financial Times Global Edition, which goes out across the world. We received applications from 5 different countries. People from executives from all industries, marketing, management, finance, banking, human resources. The past president, CEO of the United Airlines was one of the applicants. And we sorted through all of those applicants and selected Mr. J.K. Joung, our speaker today, who will be with us for 1 to 2 years. And we're so pleased to have him be a member of our faculty here. But let me tell you a bit more about J.K. He was born in South Korea, went through primary, secondary, and the first couple of years of his college education over there. Went to the Korean Army, decided after that he wanted to get an education in the U.S. So came over to St. Mary's College, and as I understand it, J.K. didn't speak much English at all at that point. You'll be impressed how he has been able to learn to speak the English language now. But it came over, finished his undergraduate at St. Mary's College in California, went on to get a master's in international relations, an MA in international relations at the University of Chicago, so must have studied pretty hard to get in there. And then came back later, got an MBA at the University of Chicago. Went on to work for nationwide insurance, and then in some consulting positions for other companies. And then about 5 years ago, he and his family decided to accept an offer to go back to Seoul, South Korea with Samsung. Is that a corporation you've heard about? He went to work as the Deputy General Manager of International and Corporate Business Development for Samsung Insurance, one of the largest insurance companies in the country. And in that position was a lead negotiator between Samsung and some of the largest banks in Asia and governments there. During this time, he worked in 10 different Asian countries. So as we looked at his credentials and with our interest in bringing in somebody with a lot of experience in international marketing and management, we couldn't have found somebody better. So help me welcome Mr. J.K. Joung. One other point. We do have a tight timeline today, so J.K. will talk for about 40 minutes, and then if you can hold your questions for the Q&A at the end, that would be helpful for us. And the lapel speaker's not, somebody walked off with it, so J.K.'s going to have to use this speaker today. Thank you.
Well, I think with such a wonderful introduction, we should stop the presentation here. I think I'll save my face, political face better at this point. Thank you for coming here. It's great to be here. I recently moved to Colorado with my family, and about a month ago, I'm new to the state, new to the academia. I'm not very good at multitasking. Now I have two things in my hand, so I don't know exactly how the presentation will go. I also will have a little bit of experiment with you, interactive. So I haven't really rehearsed with anybody with you, so I don't know exactly how things will go. So let's see. Today I'm going to talk about a difficult subject that is complex, but also very, very at the high level, so that on daily basis we do not quite feel the impact already. It's impact of globalization, along with the IT revolution, that has been shaping our lives as well as the world in the past 20 years. America is the envy of the world. Many say last century was the century of America. We won World War II, Cold War, and it had shaped the world in its own image with all the multinational institutions such as World Bank, IMF, and UN, and things of that nature. And U.S. currency, U.S. dollar is basically reserve currency in the world. It has been an American century. But things are changing. At one point, America's GDP as a share of the global GDP was 32%. Now it's about 20% or so. It has been declining since 2011. So what this means is that in your father's generation, you really didn't have to pay a lot of attention to what's going on inside the U.S. because U.S. in effect was the world. But going forward, when you walk into the career life, the next 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to be quite different world. So today, I try to convince you that globalization is real, intensifying, it will impact your life. It will impact your life even more in coming decade. Second, I try to demonstrate to you that although American culture, institutions, and product has been spreading all over the world, the world has remained quite different place from America. Cultures in different countries are radically different. And third, I try to give you little tips about maybe how to immunize yourself for globalization. It's a bit tough here in Colorado. It's a landlocked state. And you don't feel the day-to-day influence of things forward in the world. Okay? First, globalization is real and intensifying, and I tried to look for some evidence for that. But since 1980, the good news is global GDP has been growing very steadily, about 3.5% a year. However, if you look at trade figures, so economic output within the national boundary has been growing, but economic exchanges between and among countries have been growing much faster, twice as fast as global GDP. So, and despite the financial crisis that happened between 2008 and 2011, there has been real drop in the global trade. It actually seems to be accelerating, and I believe it's going to accelerate even further, given that there are a lot of ongoing trade talks that's gaining momentum. In Asia, there is a trans-Pacific trade negotiation. There has been negotiation with Europe as well, so it's going to gain momentum. Secondly, even within the U.S. National boundaries, globalization has been taking place, it's intensifying. One example could be demographic profile within U.S. U.S. has long been a white dominant society. As you heard a lot of times, it's changing very fast. In fact, going forward, most of the growth in population will come from minorities such as Hispanics, Asian, and the mixed races. In fact, the mixed race growth in the U.S. between 2000 and 2010 has been 32%. So in Colorado, which is more white than other states, I think 70% of the population non-Hispanic white. It's a bit insulated, but if you go to coastal cities such as New York, San Francisco, Seattle, you see a lot more diversity, globalizing impact on composition of the U.S. population. Also, I want to remind you that not just globalization is happening and it's intensifying, but also a shift within global balance of power has been happening in favor of large developing markets. In 1950, if you look at top 10 largest countries in terms of population, basically 5 are developed countries: US, Japan, Germany, UK, Italy. So very familiar names, right? And the rest of the large countries, such as China, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, those are in the Stone Age. It wasn't industrialized, it wasn't integrated into the rest of the world. Now look at the picture today. Out of the top 10 largest countries in the world, only 2 are developed countries. Rest are largely Asian countries, and there are some Latin American and African countries. Usually, the size of the population eventually project to reflect the size of the economy and the power. So this is a pretty good indication in terms of where the global economy is going. Let's fast forward in 35 years. Out of top 10, there's going to be only 1 currently developed country remaining in top 10 ranking, which is US. I think good thing about US is US have an amazing ability to accept immigrants and integrate them into the society. But many of these Western countries, such as Germany, Italy, Japan, are not be able to do so. It's aging and population is shrinking, especially in proportion to the rest of the world. Balance of power shifting is also evidenced in terms of economic output. Today, US has about 23%, 22% of GDP. It used to be 32% at one point, but it's going to shrink. In your career lifetime, it's going to shrink down to 15%, 16% also. That means you'll have to pay a lot more attention to what's going on outside of the US, because the US is no longer the world economy. There is a joke that if you speak more than 2 languages, you'll be called a multilingual. If you speak only 1 language, you'll be called American. But I think that joke does reflect, I think, sort of dominance of America in the world, also sort of indifference of many Americans to what's going on around the world. So if you look at this chart, all the developed part of the world is shrinking in proportion, and emerging side, underdeveloped side of the economy is growing. It's going to gain more and more power and influence going forward. So what does this mean, the impact of globalization? This has been going on for 20 years. What's the impact on your life and our life, life of people people around the world. There are three things that I try to highlight. One is, you've heard a lot about growing income gap between the rich and the poor, right? This chart shows that that phenomenon is global. Basically, this is the percentage of labor cost as a proportion to nominal GDP. So, chart shows that it's all falling all over the world. Basically, workers are gaining less and less share of economic growth around the world. Who is gaining? People with the capital have been gaining more and more, capturing more and more share of economic growth around the world. There are two reasons. One is IT revolution. I was quite struck by the fact that when I flew out of Denver International and coming to Denver International, I had to check in my luggages, right? It's all machines. There are only a couple of people manning about 10, 15 machines, baggage claim machines these days. Those people who used to work in the airport are gone, half are gone. Second is a large population of India, China, and Brazil, Indonesia have integrated into the global economy, and many jobs have been shifted to lower cost countries. So, capital, people with money, have been gaining more than people of labor. Second impact that I think has been going on within the US is actually a migration of people from one state to another. This is still not completely finalized. It's a bit of hypothesis in my view. But as you can see in the chart, you see a lot of red dots in the middle part of America. Basically, a lot of manufacturing jobs in the US has been outsourced to outside of the country to lower cost economies. Another thing you can see, so it's a sort of dark green color part are where the population is moving into, so it's gaining the population. Second trend is a lot of high-skilled, highly educated people have been moving into big cities. New York, LA, Chicago, Houston, Miami, and San Francisco, those big cities has been attracting a lot of high-skilled, highly educated people. Because those are where IT industries are located. Those are where global trade is happening. Investment bankers are working. Consultants are working. So that's the second trend that I have observed. Third trend that I have observed is senior citizens, especially those with money, maybe Jean may follow the direction later down the road, has been moving to warmer part of the US, such as Florida, Arizona, things of that nature. And then there's a curious phenomenon that's happened. So middle part of America, it's not exactly in the middle, so western part of middle has been gaining population. And there has been articles written about this. I think one explanation is people who cannot quite win in IT revolution and the globalization race has been moving into middle state, western middle states such as Wyoming, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado, for example, to take advantage of lower cost of living, bigger space, and things of that nature. Share boom might be a contributing factor, but that has come later part, not the earlier part of 2000. So this one is census data between 2000 and 2010. So there has been impact felt in the migration pattern within the US as well. And then what this means to you who are students here studying various majors, including business. How many are business majors here? Oh, wow, a lot of business. Okay. My hypothesis is that I put together this chart based on my understanding and some experiences. On the x-axis, show the tradability of jobs. Basically, whether some of these jobs are tradable or being outsourced outside of U.S. boundaries. Another way of saying is whether somebody can be mobile in terms of providing their goods and services. Y-axis is the skill level. So someone might be very low skill, someone might be very high skill. So who are winning in these twin mega forces of the globalization and IT revolution? People who are highly skilled have been winning. Especially those who are very highly skilled, but also highly mobile in providing their goods and services, has been the biggest winner. Take, for example, star athletes. If you're a Major League Baseball player, let's say born in Dominican Republic, 50 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, your pay was what you were getting in Dominican Republic. Now you can play in Major League Baseball league. You can also go to Japan League. You can go to Korea League. And you make millions and millions of dollars. Just take an entertainer. Let's take Psy. You've probably heard about Gangnam Style, right? I actually ran into him in the airport once in Seoul. He wasn't a superstar in Korea. He was okay. He didn't make a lot of money, but with one song, one hit that spread through YouTube, he became a multi-millionaire. Right? There are some investment bankers who are highly mobile, going from London to Tokyo to New York. They can move with high skills. Those are the biggest winners. You can also, in a way, insulate yourself in a job from some of these turbulences of IT revolution and globalization. So jobs like working in some administrative job in public schools, they're unionized. Those jobs cannot be really outsourced. Okay? But these job holders are not the winners. They are okay, neutral, in my opinion. There are also people who practice with the high skills, like medical doctors, optometrists, pharmacists. Those jobs cannot be outsourced. They are protected by the license, state regulations. And there are some losers in this new game. Call center workers, for example. These days, when you call Citibank in the middle of the night, you don't talk to people in the US. You talk to Sanjay in Mumbai subway. You talk to someone in Philippines. Those are largely outsourced people. Also, a lot of retail jobs here are compressing their wage inputs because machines have been replacing, automating a lot of these processes. So you gotta really think about where you want to go. In my view, you have largely two ways to go. One, you hide yourself from these twin forces in non-tradable jobs. Or you try to win by being mobile and highly skilled. If globalization has been taking place and America has been hegemonic power around the world, I think the legitimate question, in my mind, to ask is, isn't business culture around the world more or less the same? At least basic fundamentals should be similar, right? I tried to convince you and demonstrate to you that that's not the case. The world might have become flat, but at the same time, it has remained very bumpy place. Let me do some experiment. How many of you here come from Asia, not really born and grew up here? Anybody? Okay. What's your name?
Joung.
Chao?
Joung.
Chao, okay. Where are you from?
Beijing.
Beijing, China. Can you group, there are three pictures here, right? One is a lion, the other chimpanzee, third one is a banana. Can you group two pictures that belong to each other in your mind?
Just two animals.
Two animals. Okay. Lion and chimpanzees. Okay. Any other person from Asian culture? How would you group them together?
Well, chimpanzee goes with the banana, but chimpanzee goes with the lion as well.
Pick one.
Banana and chimpanzee.
Banana and chimpanzee. Okay. One more person from Asia. No, no. Okay. Who grew up in the U.S.? Born and grew up in the U.S. Okay. Many. How about one in the middle? Yeah. What's your name?
Jimmy.
Jimmy. Can you group together?
The chimpanzee and banana.
Okay. How about here? What's your name? Paige?
Yeah,
Can you group them together?
the chimpanzee and the banana.
That's okay. Why?
I don't know when I looked at the three, that's just like the pair that stuck out.
I see. It's interesting that we have very mixed result here. This is not my original idea. The psychologists, especially cross-cultural psychologists in the US, did a lot of experiment. And they took this experiment to 3 cities in Asia and 4 cities in the Western world. So 3 cities is Seoul, Tokyo, and Beijing, and asked this question. And they took the same question to Chicago, New York, San Francisco, and London, asked the same question. Overall, there's dramatically different answers. Asians tend to group chimpanzee and banana together. And Westerners tend to group lion and chimpanzee together. There are reasons for it, but there is a clear difference in terms of their thought process. So the second. Let's say, I'm just speaking without a microphone. Can you hear me? Let's call this piece of wood a tax. Okay. Okay. Between these two, which one would be tax? How about Joung? Let's call this tax. Okay? Between two objects here that I'm holding it on the left hand, which one would be tax? Here? Why?
One similar.
Similar. I see. How about Sam? Which one would be tax? It's interesting. You probably have a different reactions to this, right? As it turned out, basically they took the same experiment to these 3 and 4 different Eastern and Western cities. And Easterners overwhelmingly picked this piece as a tax. Westerners picked this piece. It was a very dramatic difference. Here's a third experiment. Is this guy in the middle with jersey number 2 look happy? Is this person look happy as well? What's the difference between the two? People in the background look different, right? They did the same experiment in Eastern and Western cities. Easterners tend to think that this person in the middle doesn't look that happy because people surrounding him do not look happy. But Westerners overwhelmingly think that regardless of how other people look happy or not, he looks happy in the middle. There are reasons for these differences, but I just want to demonstrate to you that there are differences in terms of just inherently how Easterners and Westerners think. I also brought some images of some of the big cities in Asia, just to give you sort of mental image. Picture speaks louder than words, right? How things look different. First is a typical high school classroom in China. This looks a little bit different from typical high school here in Colorado. Many of these high school students intensely focus on college entrance exam called the Gaokao. It's a sort of ticket to success or ticket to failure, depending on how you actually take the exam. Very intense. There are actually report that some people actually get intravenous while studying to improve their focus level. So that's how intense the competition is to get into good college. Second image is how Indians commute to work. This is actually not the worst picture of Indian commute. In some religious holidays, all the rooftops of the trains are filled with people as well. In fact, about 15,000 people die each year related to train accident in India. Third image is traffic jam in Jakarta, Indonesia. You see not only a traffic jam, but also type of vehicle they use are different, right? These are not cars, these are motorcycles. You see this just army of motorcycles in many developing countries. Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, many of these countries with a per capita income of $1,000 to $3,000. They cannot afford to buy cars, but they can afford to buy motorcycles with an installment. But it creates such a loud noise, and also all this acrobatic move you can see. Like I saw 4 people riding the bike. I saw people eating a noodle while riding the bike. There's so many different things that you cannot imagine in this part of the world. So what I tried to tell you so far is that globalization, along with IT revolution, has been happening. It's real. It has been impacting lives, not just outside of the US, but also in the US as well. Also, I wanted to tell you that the world outside of the US is not the same, or not even similar to how people think and behave here in the US. And going forward, if America and Americans have to be more conscious of and more attuned to what's going on outside of the US, how you can prepare yourself for ever globalizing world. This is not an easy topic, and especially it's not an easy topic to really internalize and practice for those of you who live in Colorado. Because Colorado is a landlocked state, and I walk around campus a few times for the past several weeks. It's very beautiful and peaceful, but it's very hard to feel force of internationalization and globalization. I have a few tips for you. How many are seniors in this? When I was going to business school about 10 years ago, HR model, competency model that I have learned is a T-shape. First, you need to have a vertical. So here at MCE, people in the business college have majors, right? Finance, marketing. So this is a vertical. You need to have functional expertise, whether it's in finance, marketing, HR, communications. You need a functional depth and expertise. And then once you stumble into or choose to go into a certain industry, you get horizontal, so you have industry expertise. Okay? So this is traditional competency model, T-shaped model. Now I would argue that you actually need a global competency that surround both functional and industry expertise, because increasing number of U.S. corporations have to, or forced to, go outside of our country for growth and profit. And there are three components in terms of how you can build global readiness. One is mind. So you gotta develop your intellectual capital, knowledge base, or interest in, or knowledge of things global. So do you understand corporate governance in China? Do you understand history of Indonesia? Do you understand road conditions in São Paulo, Brazil? What's the impact of one-child policy in China on the lives of the people and consumer preferences in China? So those are things you can pick up at the intellectual part, mind part of the competency. Second competency is psychological. I call it mind. I have a cousin. That's not right. I have a sister-in-law. My wife's from Colorado. I have in-laws living in the Denver area. One of my sister-in-law went to see you, and while we were in Seoul, found a job for her. It was in the U.S. military in Seoul. And we called her up and said, Lynn, we have a great job for you. I think it's a perfect suit. Can you come? I also just have an interview. She wasn't willing. She gave various reasons, and she had two part-time jobs. This one is a federal government job with good benefit and great exposure to outside of Colorado. She wasn't willing to relocate to Seoul. I think she was afraid. And psychological part of global readiness is about get yourself ready. Expand your psychological boundary so that you can take risks and feel comfortable about it. You can be more open about different culture and taking different routes. Third one is natural. You can also learn through people who are from different culture and different background. And the business especially is done through people. If you don't know how to deal with people from different culture, your knowledge is only based on your textbook. It's a dead knowledge, I would say, and you forget. So there are three components. And how you pick up these three readiness components are different, but they all have interconnections. Intellectual part, knowledge part, you can learn here on campus without a problem. You can take courses on campus. You can read magazines. There's a great magazine called Economies, the New York Times, international section, the podcast. I listen to a podcast in the morning. It's based in Hong Kong. Also, I listen to NHK. I also listen to Voice of America. So you can easily access to very different parts of the world through podcasts and internet these days. Psychological part is the toughest to develop because many people are sort of born and socialized in the family in a certain way. So it's very hard to change once you become adult. But research said that it is possible to improve. So how do you do that? It's a really good question. I think it's really through experiences. you try different ethnic restaurants with your friends. Try international movies. Try to take different route. Maybe take some summer classes outside of the U.S. If you can take internship some places and travel. I will emphasize that vacationing is not a travel. Vacationing doesn't really help expanding your psychological boundaries. Okay? Vacation is entertainment. I'm talking about you plan your own route based on some books like the Roaming Planet and go to Bangkok, Thailand. See how it goes, where the culture is different, language is different. And lastly, you can also learn through and from people around you with a different background. I went into the past few weeks exchange students from South Korea, Australia, and Germany. Get to know them a little bit and get to know why Australia had most of the world's deadliest snakes in the world, and find out what's going on in Australia. Why Angela Merkel is so sensitive to the NSA's eavesdropping. Let's find it out. And these three things have sort of interconnections. If you have a good friend who are from, say, China, you'll be interested in getting to know more about China. Also, you will try some new experiences, and vice versa. So it's not independent of each other, and there's no one right way of doing it. So try different things, and it'll create a virtuous cycle. Lastly, what I would suggest is take it as an immunization. For some people, this is really big. It's hard to internalize and practice. But I'm relatively certain that you will be confronted with some opportunities in the future to go overseas. Maybe taking these opportunities will give you more promotion or more. Maybe some of your colleagues will come from different places that you don't know very well. Take immunization in terms of globalization now. You're already taking higher education, so in terms of increasing your skill set, you're doing the right thing. But in terms of globalizing, you can take small steps now for the future. Thank you.